Emily sat trembling at the edge of the restaurant chair, her fingers wrapped tightly around a cheap little purse that held everything she had left in the world, 5 wrinkled dollars, a bus card with only 2 rides remaining, and a heart desperately trying not to fall apart. She had spent the last week convincing herself that this blind date might finally be her chance to restart life after losing her job, her apartment, and almost all hope. Her best friend had insisted this guy was nice, stable, a real gentleman, and although Emily didn't believe men like that existed anymore, she had agreed because hope, no matter how thin, was better than the emptiness she carried. She kept checking her phone, pretending to scroll so no one would see she couldn't even afford the cheapest drink on the menu. The restaurant was far too luxurious for her reality, with chandeliers dripping like melted gold and servers moving with elegance she felt unworthy of. She had rehearsed what she'd order, just water, please, not because she liked it, but because it was free. And if the date didn't offer to pay, she would simply pretend she wasn't hungry and smile through the humiliation like she always did. At the next table, a man in a tailored charcoal suit tried to focus on his meal, but his attention kept drifting toward her. Michael Hale, a CEO, a single dad, a man used to board meetings and billion-dollar decisions, found himself staring at the young woman who looked like she was trying not to cry. He recognized that expression, the quiet panic of someone hiding their struggles from the world. He had worn that same look years ago when his wife died and he had been left with a newborn daughter and an empire to manage. Something about this girl's trembling hands stirred a protective instinct inside him. He pretended to adjust his cufflinks while stealing another glance. Her dress was simple but clean, her hair styled carefully, as if she had spent hours preparing herself. Even though her eyes told a different story, she was bracing for disappointment. He noticed she kept checking the entrance, shoulders tightening every time the door opened, then sinking again when the person wasn't the one she hoped for. She reminded him of someone walking into a storm barefoot, brave, but heartbreakingly unprepared. And somewhere inside him, an urge whispered, "Help her. Someone has to." Emily's blind date finally walked in, wearing sunglasses indoors, chewing gum loudly, and tapping his phone without even glancing at her. Her heart dropped. He sat, barely offering a greeting, then waved a waiter over and ordered the most expensive steak on the menu without asking her preference. Emily forced a small smile, praying he wouldn't expect her to buy anything, praying he wouldn't ask why she wasn't eating. She could feel the humiliation crawling up her throat, especially when he said, "So, you paying for half, right? I don't do gold diggers." Her stomach clenched. Gold digger. She didn't even have enough to dig herself out of her own misery. She shook her head softly, whispering, I only ordered water," but he waved her off, eyes glued to his phone. "Whatever. Just don't expect me to cover your part. I barely know you." With every careless word, her spirit shrank a little more. She hated that she needed this date to go well. She hated how small poverty made her feel. She hated that the restaurant felt like it was silently judging her. Michael's jaw tightened as he overheard the man's tone, sharp, demeaning, dripping with arrogance. He watched the girl's eyes lower, her shoulders fold inward as if trying to make herself invisible. Something inside him snapped. A CEO could ignore many things, but cruelty was not one of them. He motioned subtly for the waiter and whispered something. The waiter nodded. Emily's date didn't notice anything, not the looks, not the tension, not the fact that the girl across from him was swallowing tears with every sip of water. But Michael noticed. And it bothered him more than he understood. When the bill arrived, the date glanced at it and scoffed. "Hell no. I'm not paying for all this." He pushed it toward Emily. The air left her lungs. She stared at the paper as if it were a bomb about to explode in her lap. She didn't have even half of the cheapest item on that bill. Her hands shook. She felt the restaurant growing quieter. Her face burned. Not again, she thought. Not another humiliation. She whispered, I can't. I only have $5. The man rolled his eyes loudly enough that people looked. Why would you come here if you can't pay? You girls are unbelievable. You expect guys to take care of everything. That did it. A tear slipped down her cheek. She stood abruptly, muttering apologies though she didn't know who she was apologizing to, the rude men, the restaurant, the universe. She just wanted to run. To vanish, but before she could, a waiter stepped beside her with a gentle bow. Miss, your bill has already been taken care of. Emily froze. What? No, who, why? The waiter only smiled. A gentleman wished to remain discreet. Her eyes scanned the room. The rude date was confused, mumbling something about lucky break, but Emily wasn't listening. Her gaze finally landed on Michael, the man at the next table. He didn't look at her, he simply sipped his wine, acting like nothing had happened. But she knew. He had that quiet, kind aura that didn't need recognition. He wasn't doing it to impress her. He did it because he couldn't stand watching someone hurt. Her date stormed out, muttering curses under his breath. Good riddance. Emily hesitated before walking up to Michael's table, her knees trembling. Did you pay for my bill? She asked in a small voice. Michael finally looked up at her, his warm brown eyes soft yet steady. You looked like you were having a hard night, he said gently. No one deserves to be treated that way. Emily felt her breath hitch. Kindness was so rare in her world it almost felt unreal. I don't know how to thank you, she whispered. He smiled lightly. You don't have to. Just sit for a moment. You look like you haven't eaten. Her face flushed. I really can't afford anything here. I didn't ask if you could pay, he said. I asked if you were hungry. And for the first time that night, her stomach growled loud enough to embarrass her. But instead of laughing, Michael nodded to the waiter. Bring her something warm. Emily sat slowly, unsure why this stranger made her feel safer than anyone she had known recently. Something about him, his calmness, his sincerity, wrapped around her like a blanket she didn't know she needed. Why did you help me? She finally asked. Michael took a breath, eyes distant for a moment. Because once, someone helped me when I was drowning too. His words were simple but carried a weight she could feel in her bones. But before she could ask more, a small girl, maybe 6 years old, ran up to their table. Daddy. I drew a flower. Look. Emily blinked. Daddy. Michael picked his daughter up with gentle arms. It's beautiful, sweetheart. Then he glanced back at Emily. I'm a single father. Life hasn't always been kind. So when I see someone struggling alone, I can't ignore it. Emily's heart softened. Not because he was a CEO, which she didn't yet know, nor because he was wealthy. But because he understood pain. Loss. Struggle. The very things that shaped her entire life. They talked for a while, about dreams, about fears, about how lonely modern life could be. And somehow, in that extravagant restaurant where she felt she didn't belong, Emily realized she was sitting with someone who saw her, not her poverty, not her brokenness, but her. As she stood to leave, Michael said softly, Emily, life can change in unexpected ways. Sometimes one bad night leads to something better. Don't lose hope. She looked at him, at his daughter, at the warmth she hadn't felt in years. Something inside her whispered that this moment mattered. More than she understood. She walked out into the cool night air with a full stomach, a lighter heart, and a strange new feeling, hope. The kind that tells you your story isn't over yet, and though she didn't know it yet, the single dad CEO who sat at the next table had already decided that this wouldn't be the last time their paths crossed.